Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have the founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have the founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. My name is Becca Dukes, and I am excited to be able to bring another one of the amazing people within the longevity family who is coming from the professional world with a degree in nutrition, a doctorate degree actually in nutrition and animal husbandry. She has been working in the animal world for decades.
Rebecca, you're muted.
Oh, I get to start. Oh, fantastic. So I'm not quite sure when I got muted, but hello, everybody, and welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. My name is Becca Dukes. I am super excited to bring another amazing doctor to the Daily with Doc program as we are just today, okay, because this doctor has been in the animal world, has a PhD in nutrition, which included human nutrition, but is kind of, it's crossed that bridge and connected in with the animal world, which is really where Dr. Wallach started. So she also is from Missouri, or lives in Missouri, went to college in Minnesota, and graduated from Texas A&M, where she has been a researcher studying minerals and metabolism in growing and racing horses. Okay, So she is very much in deep when it comes to nutrition and optimal performance. And I'm super excited to be able to have her on with us, as we are going to be bridging that gap between the medical world, the veterinary medicine, the veterinary care world in nutrition. So as always, here on Daily with Doc, we are a resource for an amazing community. This community is made up of individuals who care about others and just want to make sure people realize and help them get the information they need to thrive. So no matter what your health conditions are, there is that possibility of going from just barely surviving to thriving. I'm evidence of that. Dr. Judy is evidence of that. And we're super excited to be able to continue on Dr. Wallach's message in providing information that is empowering and the importance of the 90 essential nutrients. And I saw Dr. Wallach is on with us today. Thank you so much, Doc, for joining us and listening in as we continue on this crusade in promoting what you have started. So folks, if you're here live with us, fantastic. Make sure that you have that chat option open so that you can see all the information that's being shared in the chat. There's going to be dictation shared there as well. Marilyn Speedy Fingers, she is just fabulous at putting that information in there. Also, if you're here with us, go ahead and pin for yourself that profile that says a smile, because that's what everybody out in the YouTube, Facebook, Rumble, Spotify, Amazon TV, Roku TV, Fire TV, that's what everybody, everywhere that has video, that's what they're saying. So you can see the full episode with graphics. Now, if you're out on those different platforms, we want to know that you're there. So send us some love. Make sure that you subscribe to our channel, whether you're paying attention on Critical Health News or Daily with Doc, doesn't matter. We love you all, and we want to make sure that we know where you're at so we can continue to keep the message rolling where people are. If you have any questions for Dr. Judy in regards to today's subject, if you're here live with us, you can raise your hand. You can put it into the chat. If you're out on the different platforms and you have a question, whether you're watching the live or the replay, let us know what it is. And you can also write your questions in there, as we do have people in my team of co-hosts watching the different platforms and bringing those questions in as well. So without further ado, as I mentioned, Dr. Judy's been in, and I don't know if you heard this part or not, but Dr. Judy has been in the horse world for decades. She has been studying nutrition. She has been actually working with race horses. She worked for a company that developed horse feed and animal feed. And her focus was on providing what was going to provide optimal performance. So if we're looking at horses, optimal performance, especially those that are racing, they've got to have the best. And I absolutely love the fact that she has that knowledge and insight into both animals and humans, and is going to be sharing with us today about that going from like veterinary medicine to human medicine, or veterinary care to human care, and the similarities with that. So Dr. Judy Reynolds, thank you so much for being on with us. We greatly appreciate you. We've missed you. We've had several people ask, hey, Dr. Judy, because they just absolutely love it when you come on. You do more of a technical dive in, which a lot of people absolutely love, but we are excited to hear what you have for us today. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Becca. I'm very happy to be back. I've been super busy doing all kinds of things, like we all do. But a fun topic for today, I thought, would be, what have we learned from the animals? But let's start a little bit before that. one of the problems we have with health and medicine is that we are so segregated between the human and the animal. You could talk to 99.99% of doctors and they couldn't tell you anything about animal nutrition. And I'm an animal nutritionist, and most of us don't even study or deal with human nutrition. They're completely separate, which means they don't get to talk to each other. They don't get to learn from each other. And I just want to make one comment about what's the difference between animal science and veterinary medicine. So those are two totally different disciplines. And when you're a little girl like me growing up loving horses, you assume if you love horses or animals, you're going to be a veterinarian. So that's what I wanted to be. And circumstances didn't let that happen. It had a lot to do with just money and the family business and everything. And I knew if I went to vet school, I would be going for 10 years because I didn't want to just get a degree. I wanted to specialize in horses. And I said, there's no way, we can't afford it. It's not going to happen. But then sometimes what's supposed to happen ends up happening. And so many years later, instead of choosing the veterinary pathway, by then I knew to choose the animal science pathway. And so what that is you learn all about all the different animals, you study all the animal research, you do research with animals. But then in my case, obviously, I was also doing nutrition was a big focus for me. So in the college at Texas A&M, it's one of the rare places in the country where human nutrition is in the animal science department. So I graduated from the animal science department with a degree in nutrition, and they don't even say what kind of nutrition, it's just nutrition. And then also I met the requirements for the PhD in the animal science department. I had a master's in animal science. So throughout my history as a young girl growing up, I was fascinated by what makes things work. And I just loved horses. I wanted anything to do with horses. But I didn't want to just read the nice stories. I wanted to understand, how can a horse run so fast? How can they run for so long? How can they jump so high? How can they do all these things? And so I have a picture of myself from way back when, where I did the science fair in, oh my gosh, probably 8th, 7th, 8th grade, something like that. And here I am with my visible horse, you know, the one where you could see the skeleton and all the organs. And I had, you know, I'd looked all that up, and I just have read and collected books and everything about both. So anyway, the love of horses and the interest in trying to figure out what's going on have pretty much, you know, sent me forward through my career. And I got to do the fun stuff too. And so I don't consider myself just an academic person who went to school and learned a lot of stuff. But at the beginning of my career, I got to train and show horses and teach other people. I've taught at 2 different universities, and I taught some high school. I taught science, chemistry, introductory physical science, and things like that, because my first degree was biology teaching. So you can see I also taught anatomy and physiology in high school. And if you want to be a teacher who's not liked very well, try doing that one. But anyway, so I had the interest in learning, I have an interest in teaching, and I have an interest in nutrition. And this is, you know, basically where it got me. So the big focus here is we are so specialized that we don't get to communicate with other people about different topics. It's like, if you don't know anything about animals, how are you going to ever learn what's going on with people? So let's look at what the differences are. If you're working with animals, you can, and you want to find out something like, how much of a certain mineral does this animal need? You can put that animal in a specific location. You can have the temperature, the air pressure, the lighting. You can have the food, how it's fed, when it's fed. All of that can be very well controlled. You can use laboratory animals, and you can just feed different amounts of different things, and you can find out all these basic things. We didn't even understand vitamins at all until the early 1900s. But before that, as I talked about in one of my other talks here, we had things like scurvy in the 1700s that were killing people, and we didn't know what vitamin C was. We didn't know that people can't make their own. And if they go out on a ship for months at a time and get no vitamin C, they would literally die of scurvy, which is the lack of vitamin C. So all these things have been happening to us. But the basic way we started learning about it was through animals. So we would do these controlled studies with animals, and we could get pretty good information. Of course, then if you want to apply that to people, you have to realize that everything that works on a rat or whatever animal you're using, a horse, a dog, isn't going to work with people because there are species differences, obviously. So we learn those things from the animals, and then we have to try to figure out how to apply them to people. But then if we're a medical doctor, I think we all pretty much know that that whole system has kind of been captured by what we call the allopathic doctors. And they are trained specifically to look at symptoms and then find a drug or a pharmaceutical, which is a man-created molecule, to change the symptoms. And that basically is going to, oh my gosh, if I have a lot of pain, I feel so much better. It's a miracle. This is great. Or I have something else wrong with me, and I'm going to do that Band-Aid, but I'm not going back and looking at what caused it in the first place. And so that's what ends up happening. The human medicine is taken over by people who are not trained in nutrition at all. Some people who go to veterinary school or medical school are actually going to take a nutrition course in their undergraduate, so at a junior in college. I actually was a teaching assistant at Texas A&M for that course, and I taught that, which is basic nutrition that people should learn. But if you're going to go to medical school and go for, 4, 6, 8 years, whatever that is, you don't get any more nutrition courses because that's not a focus. So you have to understand that depending on what we're trying to do, we have to go to the right place. And so what we found with the animal research, lots and lots of it over many, many decades, centuries, we found out the basic requirements. We found out what minerals we need, what vitamins we need, what amino acids, the building blocks of protein that we need. We found out what essential fatty acids we need, and then we can use that to try to figure out what people should eat to be healthy. The problem is, as you and I all know, human beings, we do not get taught when we're children that that's what we need to do, that we need to have certain nutrients. We need to make sure we eat them every day, and then we're going to be healthier. We are just basically, it's a free-for-all. It's free choice. And then we have things available to us. We have fresh fruits. We can grow our own vegetables and things like that. Or we can go to a grocery store, and there are literally thousands, hundreds of thousands of products that we can buy that are out there that either are food or look like food. And this is where we get into some of the main concepts, like if you take soybeans or corn and you remove the oil, the process that is used to do that, those oils have to be heated over 400 degrees multiple times. And then there are chemical extractions and all kinds of things involved. And at the end, they may have to actually put something in that oil to make it not smell so bad that you wouldn't want to get anywhere near it. I remember sitting in my office at my nutrition job, and I was creating horse feeds. So I would bring in feeds that other companies had made, and I would put them in my office, and I would analyze them and look at them. And I remember most of them smelled so bad, I couldn't stand having them around. They had chemicals and all kinds of things in them, and, they're sitting there. So, the point is, we have ended up on the human side, because we aren't taught nutrition, we have ended up with all these things that really are not even food. And we've ended up with some ideas. And, there are chemists that their job is to create things and make them taste good. And they use fat, they use salt, and they use sugar. There's a great book out with that title by Michael Moss, where he goes through what gets done in the industry to get people to buy things, to get people to have a snack food. You're going to balance those three things: fat, sugar, and salt. And people are going to be, okay, I really love the taste of this. And we've got a tagline like, nobody can eat just one, right? Now, to me, in an ideal world, those chemists would be out there figuring out how to do things naturally, how to use things that are good for us and things that are real food. And that's what I'm hoping comes from this, where we start thinking about what we do with animals and then we bring it together with what's going on with people. Okay, so we've learned that things like vegetable oils, just because of the way they're extracted and things that are done to them, our bodies were never meant to digest those things. One of the main things we don't want is vegetable oils. So what does that mean? Butter is good. Milk is good. Eggs are good. These kinds of things that we fall into these traps where we think it's in the store or it's advertised, and therefore it's good. But one thing to keep in mind all the time is that whenever someone's trying to sell you something, first of all, the more money they spend trying to sell it to you, the less money they have to buy really good ingredients to put into it. It's marketing. If you spend all your money on marketing, are you making the best product for health? Remember, any personally owned company or privately or publicly traded company, their goal is to make money. That's their goal. And so if their objectives are sell more stuff, but they're not nutritionists, they don't know what necessarily is good for people. They're just trying to sell a product. So we need to come into this with our eyes wide open and realize, okay, this is what, and it's the same with the animal foods too. You buy them from a company, but you're going to trust that company. You got to make sure you're trusting that company, that they have a good reputation. But again, here's the big difference between the animal foods and the human foods. We don't want our animals to be sick. And there's no insurance company that's going to pay for your sick animal. So we put the nutrients in at the beginning. When you buy your pet food, your cat and your dog food, the nutrients are supposed to be in there. And if you buy a bag of horse feed, those nutrients are also supposed to be in there. But in human food, again, it's sell the product, but the nutrition is not in there or is not guaranteed. So we're dealing with two different things. And one more thing that I always talk about that I haven't heard other people really even mention that much is the fact that, let's say you want to do research on human beings. Okay. With the animals, we can compare different things, like in my research, I did a certain amount of potassium. I did low, medium, and high potassium in racehorses. Or I'm sorry, that was in the HYPP horses. Anyway. But with humans, how are you going to do a study with human beings where you're going to control every single variable except for the amount of potassium they take? If you think about that for a minute, how would you do it? Because everybody out there can eat whatever they want, whenever they want. They live in a certain place. They have certain habits. They do so many different things. It's not possible. For ethical reasons, we can't put people in nice little boxes and change the temperature and have everything exactly perfect. That's not ethical. And as an aside, I'm extremely glad that we have the ethical constraints we have now on animal research, because as I went back and searched the literature, there is a lot of questionable animal research that went on out there. But nowadays we have extremely good ethics as far as what we can and can't do. The most extreme thing that I did with the two huge research projects that I did was I drew blood and I shaved the hair off so I could do ultrasounds. I mean, literally, I didn't do anything more invasive than that. So ethics, a good thing. Okay, back to what do we do for human research? Okay, we can look back at what people have done. So they'll get these big studies together and they'll say, okay, we grabbed 2,000 or 20,000 or 200,000 people And we had them fill out questionnaires about what they ate at certain times throughout a certain time frame. How many of you can go back a week from today and write down everything you ate, when you ate it, not to mention keep track of all the environmental conditions around you? I mean, it's not even possible. But those are the kind of studies. If you go and you try to read the human research, that's what you're going to find. And the other thing you're going to find is that people go in with a bias in human research. You have to be extremely careful to look for conflicts of interest. Is a company trying to sell a certain product and then doing the research? Well, if they are, they're going to probably cherry pick or make sure that the results turn out basically the way they want them to, because that's basically how they're making their living. That's what they're trying to do. And I kind of challenge people, with almost any conclusion that you get from one human study, I can just about always find the opposite conclusion from another study. Because that's the way it is. That's the way it's set up. There's no way to control all the other variables. So with that in mind, and I'm a historian, I've collected books my whole life, and I go through them and look up certain things. And virtually all the time, you're ending up with, I am a certain kind of eater. Okay, and I'm not going to get specific, but I'm a certain kind of eater. And as I go into this study, I know that I'm going to want to find the people who eat that way. And I know I'm going to want to make it look like they are doing better on some parameter, some outcome, whatever that is, than the people who eat the other way, the bad way. Okay. This world is so diverse as far as the conditions, all the way from, the North Pole, the South Pole, the equator, everything in between. The animals and the people are so diverse on this planet. And people have existed in the most extreme conditions you can even imagine. And they've managed to do it with local food. So it isn't that everybody on the planet has to eat the same way. It would make no sense. Depending on where you live in the world, you're going to have it, it's going to be easier for you to live. Okay. If you're living up in the, in the extremes, north and south on the globe, you're going to have lighter skin. You're going to have certain other things because there's less sunlight up there. If you live along the equator, a lot more sun you have to deal with. You're going to have a different amount of pigment. And that's all it is. You are set up to live in that particular place in the world. Just for some extreme examples. When I worked for the feed company, my dream job that I absolutely loved doing, I was working with a person who did a show called The Horse Show with Rick Lamb. And he would bring on amazing people all throughout the horse industry. And one of the people he brought on had written a book, and he was an explorer. And they actually taught horses to eat meat. They adapted them because they were going across the ice where they were going to have to kill animals to survive. And they adapted those horses to actually eat just meat. Now, that should blow your mind. It blew my mind. But the point is, and that was short term also, but we all believe that the horses have to have all these bacteria in the hindgut and they have to digest the forage, the fiber part and everything. But our world is set up so that it's so diverse. There are so many options. There's no perfect way to feed yourself other than getting your essential nutrients. Doesn't mean it's easy. And there are so many ways that they vary. They vary if you're working hard, if you're an extreme athlete. I laugh every time I hear Dr. Wallach talking about the lifespans of people, of groups of people, because one of the longest living people by occupation is librarians. I'm a third generation librarian person. My grandmother opened the library up in their local Minnesota town, and she had relatives over in Wisconsin who had worked in libraries and had libraries. And then my mother carried on the library tradition. And of course, again, that's kind of where I'm from. And these people I just lost my mother, unfortunately, last year at 94 and a half years. And she did not exercise. She did not even eat very well. But the point is, we're so diverse. We can do a lot of things. We need to know what our essential requirements are. Some of the research I did with the racehorses had to do with bone breaking strength. It was an FDA funded, NRC. It was government funded, looking at bone breaking strength in horses, because we've had these famous races where it's just unbelievably catastrophic. The horses are out there running, and then one of them will literally break a leg and fall down and everything. It's a horrible thing. We need to know how much calcium they need. We need to know how much of all the nutrients they need. We need to know the balance. We need to know how to feed them better for that. And that project, when it was finished, they started looking at it for osteoporosis for people. It seems, though, like they went towards, well, let's get a drug to fix it, instead of, well, let's make sure we're meeting our nutrient needs. So let's hope us as a group, that's what we're working on. That's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to get that information out there and do the thing. I want to do one more example, because this has been one of the worst things that could ever happen. It's gone on for 60, 70 more years. And that's the whole thing about demonizing butter and eggs and cholesterol. And all that it was a fraud for people trying to sell artificial things like your vegetable oils, because they had a lot of them. They had them after World War II. They wanted to sell them. And so it was just a marketing battle. And the person who won used bogus information and made it sound like if you ate cholesterol, if you ate butter and eggs and milk and all the things that we've been surviving on for our entire life. I mean, we have Mongolians who live off the milk and milk products of the horse and still do, demonize that in order to sell things. So what did they do? They demonized cholesterol. And so now if I'm looking through the research and I'm trying to figure out, do I want to listen to this person? Do I want to listen to this person who's found the cure for everything, or the best diet, or whatever it is? When they start talking about lowering cholesterol and taking drugs for cholesterol and good and bad cholesterol and all that, I know that they are on the wrong complete path. And if that path is so wrong, then how are they going to understand the other things? Salt. I just got a reference book yesterday that I ordered about salt, about the whole history of salt and how important it is. And every animal that we have, all our livestock, we have to provide salt for them. We always know that. But for people, we demonize the salt. And again, all these things that we're fighting with. Not enough chlorine for hydrochloric acid so we can digest our meats and we can get our minerals out of our food, because they're telling us don't eat salt or eat too little salt. So anyway, I think the biggest takeaway here is it really helps when you have two things to compare to each other. And by looking at both human nutrition and animal nutrition, it gives you that absolutely amazing comparison. My favorite class as an undergrad, I guess I got to go into that a little more, but when I first went to school after, over a decade between high school and college, and I first went back to school, I got a degree at a community college, and there was a group of nurses there. So they were providing courses for nurses, anatomy and physiology, and those types of things that nurses need to know. So I got to go to those courses. So in my first 2 years of college, when I was learning all my very basic stuff, I focused on that. I focused on learning that. Then I went on and got a bachelor's, the other 2 years of a basic 4-year degree. And I got it in biology and teaching because I was going to be a biology teacher. And so I was focusing on all those kinds of things back then in the human world. Again, it becomes this whole long story of how you get both the humans and the animals and the things together. But my favorite course in that undergrad world, where there were no horse classes, I was up in Minnesota. I did not have a good place to go for that. And my favorite class was comparative anatomy and physiology, because we went through all the animals and we would learn things like birds only develop one side of their reproductive organs. They have two, but only one is developed. Well, if you're a flying animal, what do you need two sets of your reproductive organs for? If the one doesn't work anymore, then the other one can work, right? And your bones are hollow if you fly. Okay. How does a whale go underwater, and the pressures underwater are huge, extreme? How does a whale go underwater and survive all that pressure? Specific adaptations for that. I mean, it's so fascinating. And the big thing with horses, which I got to throw in, is horses actually keep 1/3 of their red blood cells in their spleen when they're just relaxing. They're just, hey, doing nothing. But something scares them, they shy, and their spleen, that 1/3 of the red blood cells gets dumped instantly. And you can see what that does. It brings half again as much oxygen carrying capacity of those red blood cells. How did that happen? Why did that happen? So all of these things, by comparing, we learn more about what we're trying to study by comparing it to something else. And that's why the comparison of the different animals, and then for me, the comparison of the people with the animals, really gives us a huge amount of insight into what we are trying to accomplish. Okay, that was quite a bit. Becca,
Hi.
you want to jump in here with anything?
Well, so I think that's very interesting as you were going through and you were studying actually human anatomy, and then into animals, and then seeing that there are some similarities in function of the organs, but there are also differences. Right. But the one thing that you saw is all animals and humans need nutrition, intentional nutrition.
Right.
So as we're looking at like the longevity product line, there's products for humans, there's products for animals, there's crossover products from humans that can be used as animals. Mm-hmm. In your professional opinion and advice, because I have a lot of people wanting to know, what do I give my dog? How can I give my dog the 90 essential nutrients, or their cat, or I've even had a goat and a bird. What would you recommend?
Right. Okay. Just a little bit of history. How would a nutritionist figure that out? So let's just quickly do that. The National Research Council, which is part of the government, puts out publications. I worked as an official reviewer of the 2007, the most current edition of the National Research Council Nutrient Requirements of Horses. And what they do is they search the literature and they figure out, they separate into work categories and reproduction categories. And then they figure out all the nutrients that they know of, that they're aware of, and what they think everybody should get. There are publications like that for all the other animals. There are cats and dogs, there are goats and those kinds of things. So a person who wants to look these things up can go back to those basic manuals to get an idea. Okay. You need to realize, though, that when they do those, they are looking at a minimum, and they're basically looking at preventing a disease that you get with lack of a certain nutrient, like scurvy or vitamin C. So they're not going to give you what you need to be an extreme athlete or even to be as healthy as you could be. So those are basic guidelines. Now, when we're talking about our cats or dogs, there are feed companies who make the basic dog foods that we know about, the cat and dog foods. They come in cans, and they've got water added, or they come in bags. And what those are supposed to do is they are supposed to provide all the nutrients that cat or dog needs. And if it's a reputable company, then hopefully they did that. However, we've got to realize that that is, again, preventing a nutrient deficiency. For the most part, we want to do more than that. And so for our cats and dogs, we have the Arthrodex, which is an amazing product. It's adding additional, it's got micronutrients in there that the NRC and those people don't even recognize a lot of the rare elements and the minor nutrients. They don't even recognize it, so they don't know we need it. So when we do our plant-derived minerals and we put things like that are in the Arthrodex, that's the kind of thing that we want to give our dogs and cats and other animals to make sure that we're getting above that. Okay, we got to have a reputable company. We have to put that we pick one of those commercial diets, or there are formulas out there where you can do a raw diet or a frozen diet, or there are people that specialize in that kind of thing. But the difference there is we want to make sure we're not using a lot of fillers. Like all the dog foods in the past had corn in them and things like that. Those are not natural, normal things for a dog to be eating. Okay, so we're going to pick one of those foods. We're going to add things like we can use the human plant-derived minerals. We can use the Arthrodex. And just a comment about the Arthrodex, there is a law in the United States that says you cannot feed any ruminant meal. You can't feed, for instance, parts of a cow to another cow or another ruminant. So we're not allowed to use Arthrodex on our goats and cattle. But other than that, it's made for basically the cats and dogs and those types of animals. Okay. I personally have been using the plant minerals that we use on our gardens. That's the one I use, the Bloomin' Minerals. And I actually give that to all my horses and my cats and my dogs. I do that on top of the other things that I would have recommended before I learned about these products. And I've had some amazing results. I mean, we have to do that another time and try to get through some of that. But another thing I think is really underutilized for the pets is eggs, because they're one of the most, eggs and milk are the two most important animal foods because they're the most complete. And so eggs, and people sometimes worry about raw egg whites have a protein called avidin, and it interferes with biotin absorption. Biotin is an essential B vitamin. If you're worried about that, I mean, obviously cats and dogs out in the wild, specifically cats, are eating bird eggs and things like that, and they're not cooking them. I mean, they're eating them raw. They'd have to eat huge amounts of it to cause a problem. But if you're worried about that, you can just add some biotin. You can add a biotin supplement to that animal. Not a big issue, in my opinion. The other thing that I really love being able to give my animals is I will cook a chicken or other meat and then give them the bone scraps. They should be able to chew on the bone, the collagen, the soup, everything that's good in there. What we don't want to do is we don't want to give them bread or some of those other things that we shouldn't be eating either. And I'm gluten-free for 6 years. Because of my grandson learning the whole issue of gluten. It's just like, okay, no, thank you. So be careful with what we feed our pets. Don't just use them for the garbage container. Everything that you didn't eat at the table goes into the pet. No. But I purposely buy my meat with the bones in as much as I can. I'll buy, whatever kind of meat, it's still got the bone in. And that way I'm also feeding it to my pets. I have 3 cats, 2 dogs. Most of the animals I have are rescue animals. So, I'm trying to do that whenever I can. And I totally believe we got to neuter these pets because there are more than we have to have. But things like that. And if people would like help figuring out what to do with an individual pet, basically I just walk through it with them. What kind of animal is it? What are you feeding now? I go kind of in depth and just say, okay, here are some options. Let's see, try some of these things. Sometimes I'll say, okay, well, you may be feeding something that I'm not sure you need because you're already getting it here. Or, I just go through and look at that animal and say, here are some recommendations. And with the horses, a big deal is that you have to do local stuff. When I'm working with a customer with a horse, they have local forage, which is, your hays and pastures, whatever's available. And then they have vitamin mineral supplements. As I said, I use the Bloomin' Minerals for all my animals. My horses get it, my garden gets it, everything. But I go through what's available in your area locally. Now with cat and dog food, you can get some of the same basic bags with, the same name, the same type of bag in different parts of the country. But you have to realize that sometimes the formula will be different. So you've got to look through all those things. But basically, I look for things where I think people might be overfeeding, where of a certain thing that's bad for them, like our good foods, bad foods list. There are also some bad things that we don't want to give our pets specific to the pet. But, that's kind of the way you have to look at it. As far as I'm concerned, is just, I want to know more about that animal. I want to know what the issue is. And then the other thing that I do is if I don't have a good handle on that particular issue, I look it up. And I have thousands of books. So, that's one of those things. We got to be really careful with what's on the internet. It's
absolutely.
the internet is not necessarily the truth. So I look more for nutrition type things. I look more in my older books for basic concepts, and I look at research. But as far as what someone has written on a website, maybe not so much. So.
Well, I know in those thousands of books, you have at least 20 of Dr. Wallach's books.
I can tell you right now, Becca, as far as I know, I have every one of them because I just got one last week.
Fantastic.
And I think I have them all. So.
Okay. There you go, Doc. Dr. Judy has all your books.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got a couple questions here. And one of them, you had just mentioned ruminant animals. So for those that don't know what a ruminant animal is, what's a ruminant animal and why did you specifically say ruminant animals?
Okay. There is a differentiation between, if we think of our animals like cows and zebra and horses and goats, they're all 4-legged mammals. They feed their babies milk and they're 4-legged. But the difference between the two, there are 2 categories. There's the even-toed. In other words, if you look at calves and those types of animals, even giraffes, they have split hooves in the front. They have 2 toes and then 2 more toes behind them. So it's called even-toed. Now, remember, people are just trying to classify animals so they can understand them better. So on the outside, you're seeing that they're what's called an even-toed ungulate. Okay. But the other big difference is the digestive system is different. Then if you take the horse, they're called odd-toed. And the horse is more closely related to the rhino with 3 toes and the hippo with 3 toes, the horse, than it is to the giraffe and, the cow and the sheep and all that. But the difference is in the digestive system. A ruminant, they call them that, because they have a huge stomach that gets divided into 4 sections. And what they do is they actually, if you think about a cow, they'll go out and they'll graze for a while, and then they'll go lay down under a tree. And they actually burp up the food from one of those stomachs, and they chew it, and chew it, and chew it, swallow it again. And it goes, then it starts to go through the path. So part of their life is that I have this huge stomach, and the bacteria that digest the fiber are in that part. They're in the front, okay? And what happens there is that the bacteria get the first shot at all the good nutrients. So the bad news there is if you wanted to feed a high quality protein to that cow, it doesn't matter, because the bacteria are going to break it down and you're going to lose that high quality part of the protein. So it doesn't do you that much good to feed high quality proteins to cattle, because the bacteria will get it first. Okay, so just a way of looking at it. Now, compare that to a horse, which is more similar to a dog and a person and things like that. We have that one basic thing that we call the stomach. And the purpose of the stomach for us, it's very acidic, and the fiber kind of just goes through there and doesn't really get affected that much. But it's acidic enough that we can break down our proteins. Like I said, we need very high acid, very strong acid, to break down our proteins and to allow our minerals to be absorbed and, changed enough in things so that we can use it. So then in a horse, from that normal stomach, and it goes in the small intestine, and we absorb most of our fat, most of our protein, a lot of our vitamins and minerals. And then it goes to what we call the hindgut, which is the same as that bacterial fermentation vat, and it gets the fiber, and then just a few of the minerals and the water get reabsorbed. So basically between your what we call odd-toed ungulates, the horse type, and even-toed ungulates, the cow type, we go either let the bacteria have at it first, and then we take what's left, or we try to digest it and let the bacteria have it at the end. So there are advantages and disadvantages both ways. I mean, the thing about not feeding Arthrodex to a ruminant is because of the whole issue. A decade or so ago, it was really a big deal, maybe a little longer than that, about worrying about BSE. And so you can't feed ruminant meal or anything to ruminants. And Dr. Wallach did a really good talk about that I've seen, where he talked about the deer and chronic wasting, and that's the same kind of a concept. And you'd have to go and watch that so you understand what I'm talking about. But it was worrying about a certain kind of misshaped protein called a prion in the brain. And for the most part, people are misunderstanding that. They were. It doesn't seem to even come up that much anymore. But again, more likely than not, it has more to do with nutrition than it has to do with a contagious type of thing. Okay, so pardon me?
What is BSE? Acronym for something really long.
Yes. Bovine, spongiform encephalopathy.
Oh, okay.
Because cattle. Cattle is bovine. Spongiform is just what they call it because it looks that way. And encephalopathy, it's in the brain, it messes with the brain, but it's the same in cattle as chronic wasting in deer. And there's a similar thing in humans called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, where you get brain problems just like that in a human brain. And that is most commonly seen in people who eat the brains of other animals. Okay.
So not just humans eating humans, but actually the brain of other animals.
Eating the brain or spinal column, because what happens is these misfolded proteins are not going to work correctly. And then if they're next to another protein, they're going to make that misform, and they're going to make the next one misform. And so basically it's not like a virus. And again, that's all controversial too. It's not like a virus or a bacteria that comes in and attacks and does that kind of a thing. The forming of the protein is incorrect because of probably nutritional reasons. Remember when Dr. Wallach talks about the black genes and he talks about the misformed red blood cells?
Like sickle cell.
Sickle cell, and what sickle cell does, the reason it's still in the population is for some reason it protects people from malaria. So if you live in a part of the world where there is malaria and you have sickle cell disease, you are more likely to survive. Okay, but it's bad to have sickle cell in a normal person going about their everyday lives because those blood cells don't work correctly and they pile up and they block the tiny little, the blood vessels get smaller and smaller as they go towards your fingers and your toes. And the little bitty capillaries there, those misshaped blood cells are going to do damage. They're going to cause big problems and it's extremely painful. But there's another thing that happens in white people. So it's not a black thing that you get sickle cell. It's also happens in white people. But remember, with discoveries, they get found in different parts of the world by different people who don't know each other. They get named for where they were found or the name of the person who found it or those kinds of things. And so it's called thalassemia. And look it up in Black Gene Lies.
Yeah, this book right here.
Right. And it's just one of those things where, like, Dr. Wallach has changed the name of what happens when your skull reforms wrong because of lack of nutrients. Your skull forms incorrectly. And he's renaming it to what I should be able to pop that in my head.
Skull.
Yeah, no, but I mean osteoporosis of the skull.
Dysplasia.
Yes, he's calling it Wallach's dysplasia because that explains that it's a nutritional problem, not something else, which, because I mean, your typical doctor does not understand the concept of the cranial nerves and that when you have a problem somewhere else in your body, it's the nerves getting squeezed somewhere between the brain and that organ that is causing the problem, not the organ. And so you don't want to take someone's heart out and shock it to try to get it to be fixed when the problem is the vagus nerve, a cranial nerve, and it's being squeezed by too much calcium in the brain. So, okay.
We do have a couple questions. We only have 4 more minutes until our is over. So Harry wants to know, is it a great idea to place salt blocks around the paddocks for horses near the drinking water? So you briefly mentioned the salt blocks. We use them as mineral blocks because it's more than just salt. And then we also use the ones that include the selenium. So does it matter where they're placed? And is it a good idea to have it close to their drinking area?
Okay, great question. At my previous job, I was in charge of all the formulations. I inherited a formula for a mineral salt block that was about 25-30% salt, and then it had all the other minerals. It had the calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, 27 vitamins and minerals and electrolytes were in that. And I know Dr. Wallach, I didn't know about all the 90 at that time, but that's what I did is I promoted these mineral blocks because yes, every single horse needs salt and all the cattle, all those animals need salt. And I'll get to why in a minute, but I worked and promoted that. It was originally formulated by the USDA in 1925, and then we got to tweak it. I was one of the people, I worked there 14 years. I got to tweak some of those formulas, but I believe in doing that rather than just salt. Okay. And then a trace mineral salt block, what that means is if you give them the correct amount of salt that they need, they're not getting enough even of the trace minerals to do them any good, but that's a very common thing. If anybody's interested in that for grazing animals, get with me because That's what I did, was really promote the mineral products, the tubs, the different kinds of blocks and everything. I better throw this in now because people are going to wonder why. Why do all the grazing animals have to have salt? Because they eat grass, and grass doesn't contain salt. Grass contains potassium. That's how it moves the water up and down, turgor pressure with potassium. And why do animals need salt, but plants do not need salt? Because animals move. Plants don't move. Plants get their nutrients from the soil and they stay in one place. But an animal, if you're going to move, you have to have some kind of a membrane, and you have to have two things, one on each side of the membrane. And so with us in our cells, we have that potassium inside our cells, and we have the sodium outside our cells. I actually did my PhD project for anybody who has horses with HYPP. That was a genetic mutation, and we had to adjust the amount of potassium to make it work. But whenever you have a membrane and you have one electrolyte on the inside and one on the outside, then you can do two things. You can have nerves work and you can have muscles work. So that's why we have to provide salt to all those grazing animals. If they're eating meat, they're going to get some meat or salt from the blood and those kinds of things. Okay. So it just, what was the second part of that? I think I missed the second part of your question.
But is it good to have it near drinking water?
Oh, about being near the water. You need to monitor how much the horse is eating, and that's one of the techniques you can use to make sure they eat as much as you want, as they should eat. If they're really, first of all, when you first put a block out, whether it's plain salt or the minerals I'm talking about, they're going to go for it because they're starved. If they haven't had a salt source, they're starved. Now, they may have gotten salt in a bagged feed, and they may be okay, but probably not. So there'll be a time where, you got to let them get accustomed to it. But once they're accustomed to it, move it closer to the water if you want them to drink more, move it farther away if you want it to drink less. And make sure that every part of the herd can get to it. When you're making your pasture, make sure that, they're all herd animals. So the boss will chase some of the younger or the older ones away. Make sure that everything you put out in a pasture or a paddock, including the water, that no one can be cornered. Like don't have a corner of the fence and put your water or your salt right there so that they can come in and corner a horse there. Make sure that they can move around. But that's a great question about how far away to put it.
All right.
Okay.
And we're over the hour, but we do have another person wanting to know what is the original reason for fortifying dog and cat foods other than an insurance angle?
Oh, okay. That was a little confusing, kind of the way I did it. Okay. The nutrients that we need and that animals need are not necessarily in the feedstuffs, because as we know, every blade of grass that grows somewhere, or every tree, or whatever it is that's going to be food for an animal, doesn't have a uniform amount of vitamins and minerals and those kinds of things. And it never did. They never did. So what happened was, for instance, wild horses, they're not getting fed anything. They are out eating, and it's survival of the fittest. If they happen to live somewhere where there is a good source of salt, and they will find the salt licks, they will chew on bones and everything. They will do whatever to try to get minerals. But a very interesting part of that is their coat color can be changed a lot by a lack of certain minerals. Another great topic for another time. But every animal that we're keeping as a pet is not having access to go out and try to find what it wants to eat. And even if it was, that animal just didn't have everything it needed. So our wild animals they have a higher mortality rate. They live less time. Just all kinds of things are happening to them because they are mineral deficient. And we know that. We've known that for the centuries that they've been feeding animals, since they've been domesticated. We know that we had to start giving them things. Now, remember, a key to that in the past too. Say you had a dog and you were more of a primitive person and you hunted and caught meat and cooked it. You have ashes, and the minerals are in the ashes. So out in the wild, the horses, they're on their own. Dogs that would hang around with a tribe of native people, anything like that, they were cooking and they were using ashes and they were getting their minerals and stuff that way. And it's the same thing like we always talk about. Once we started using electricity, we quit burning wood and we lost that source of minerals, and it's been downhill since then. But the point is, on the animal side, we have to feed the nutrients or the animals won't be healthy. And nobody wants sick animals. So they figured it out. On the nutrition side, they figured it out. You can't sell food for pets if your pets get sick. You'll go out of business. So they figured it out. But in the human side, they figured out a way to, you pay a little bit into your insurance every week or every month. And then, if you have to go to the hospital and you need to spend $100,000, the insurance covers it. But you're still paying in all the time. You're just not realizing. And that's what I meant about the insurance being different. And by the way, they're starting to you can sign your pets up for insurance and stuff now. But do you really want to? Don't feed the pets the bad human foods. And then you probably don't have to worry about it. So,
right. So, we are over, and I don't know if you know the answer to this question, but we do have a question that wants to know. They want to know, is it good to drink salt water every day to help with low blood pressure?
Okay, blood pressure is a huge thing. I've actually been working on that myself for someone I'm working with, and it is so convoluted and complex. One of the things I recently found out or remembered or whatever is that when we're looking at blood pressure, if you look through the diagnostics for it, it's almost always low calcium in your diet. Okay, calcium is one of the big things in your diet. You can look it up, high blood pressure, low calcium. But one of the things that calcium does, other than being low calcium, you can get 150 or more diseases from having low calcium. And it's one of the most common things. I think Doc said 80% of people are low in calcium or something like that. Okay. But another thing calcium does is it works with the acid-base balance. It's used as a buffer. So if your body is too acidic, and I got to be real careful here because our whole body is not one pH, one acid. The acid varies all over our body depending on what we're trying to do. So don't do this. Okay, you got to have the alkaline this or the acid that. But calcium gets pulled out of your bones to fix pH in your blood. Your pH has to be from 7.35 pH, which is just slightly more basic than water, less acidic than water, from 7.35 to 7.45. Your body will do everything it possibly can to keep that pH in that range. Because if it doesn't, remember, this is your blood. If it's not in that range, the oxygen won't come in the lungs. The carbon dioxide won't go out in the lungs. The food won't come in from your stomach in different places, and the waste will not go out. That blood system has to be that regular. So I think one of the things people miss when we're looking for the differential diagnosis for high blood pressure, there were about 40 different things that you can look at to see if it's messed up. Okay. So can't give you a quick answer to high blood pressure, but
or low blood pressure.
It ties into not only calcium being a huge deal, but the pH in the blood being a huge deal. And so I should probably, I'm really working on this right now myself. I have a relative with that problem. So
that you will come back, and as you have come up with solutions, come and share them with us.
Absolutely.
AJ has his hand. I know we could go on and on.
Okay.
But
yep.
AJ.
Well, then how do the calcium channel blockers or blood pressure medications affect that? What you're
Okay.
talking about, the low blood pressure.
Okay, let's just start with where do we test our blood pressure?
Our arm.
We put a cuff right there. Bang. Okay, we test it there. Are we letting oxygen or carbon dioxide in and out or food in and out or anything there?
Not at that time.
Not at all. So we're testing it there. Okay, if it's high there, that means somewhere down line has a sensor that's telling us I need more food or oxygen, or I need to get rid of some carbon dioxide or some waste. Somewhere down line, it's going, help me, I need to get rid of this stuff. So the blood pressure goes up. Okay, if you take something to lower your blood pressure with a medication, you're fixing it here, but you're making it worse everywhere peripherally, right?
Mm.
That's exactly what you're doing. You're lowering, there's a reason for it, and you have to find out what that reason is. If it's pH because you eat too much acidic stuff, or, I mean, like I said, there are 40 some things that can cause that high blood pressure. And when you were asking about drinking water and salt and things like that, you understand heavy exercise. You understand, workouts. I did racehorses. Okay. It's extreme. So you have to figure out how much am I going to feed and how am I going to recover from those kinds of things. You have to decide. I personally have to take extra potassium. And a lot of people should be taking potassium because it's hard to eat enough vegetables. Remember, we get our potassium from our vegetables. We get our salt from our meat and from having things salt added to it, right? I mean, you have to look up in charts how much salt is in this food or that food. But that's the thing about exercise physiology. That's the huge thing about that is you're not just meeting your basic needs, but you've got to meet whatever extra things you put on yourself, that you're going to run a marathon or you're going to be a weightlifter. Remember, docs, exercise without supplementation is suicide.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That is it. That is why the rebound. That is why we have all, electrolytes are just minerals that ionize in water. It's not just salt. Magnesium, calcium, all of this stuff ionizes in water. It means it has an ionic bond, but it's in the blood and, we lose it in the urine. I mean, all these things. That's what physiology is so, in a way, messy and complicated, but that's our job. That's to figure it out. That's the job, to figure it out for nutrition, for a sedentary person, for nutrition, or a librarian, or for an extreme athlete.
Well, Dr. Judy, I know you got to go, but if I recently started getting healthy, I recently started taking the 90 and I'm getting better and I'm still on my calcium channel blocker and I'm still on my high blood pressure medication, would I get lightheaded? Would I get dizzy? Would I feel like garbage?
What will happen? You got to test it at your arm to see, did it go down? Because that's what they're trying to do. You got to see, did you get better? And that's actually what happened to me because I was taking 3 blood pressure medicines when I started on the 90 and I just dropped them one at a time. And doc says, okay, you're already doing something that's stopping the pressure going to the extremities where they need the blood. So you've got to get whatever it is, you got to fix what is stopping that from happening without too high of a blood pressure. You got to work at it from that end, get the nutrients in, and then gradually reduce the medicines. Because absolutely, if you keep taking those medicines after you fix the problem, you're going to have too low a blood pressure. But I mean, I've been working on this for several months now, and it's especially in really elderly people, because the theory, the doctor tells you have a genetic mutation, you have hardened arteries, you must take these medicines for the rest of your life. That's what they tell you. And then you have to decide, is this true? I don't think so. Most of us don't think so. So,
we have to think for ourselves.
We have to think for ourselves.
And we have to have you back next week.
Yes. Have you back on a regular basis, Judy.
Next week, we vote, everybody.
That's true.
I have heard that the internet might go down or something. I should probably say that, but who knows? But yes. Yeah. I love this stuff. This is what I do. This is what I want to do. I'm always sitting here reading a book instead of doing something else, looking up another topic. But it's just fun. It's just interesting. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Thank you.
And extra time. It's always a pleasure as you go deeper in to the physiology things of how the body works and how the nutrients respond within them. So thank you, Dr. Judy Reynolds, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Now, Dr. Judy, check your messages after the show because I've got a special request for you. Okay. And on the screen we have, because we couldn't do this program all by our lonelies, we have AJ, who is our director of marketing, digital marketing, whatever, digital marketing director. There, I got it. Instead of DWD, it's DMD, folks. We just thank AJ as he has been such a great help in getting us out on more and more platforms. Mr. Little, no, you're not an alien. So thank you, AJ, for all that you do. We have Ruth Ellen Sanchez, who is our executive marketing, our executive production manager, who's helping to keep everything straight. Now I need somebody in my brain keeping me straight. And thank you, Ruth Ellen, as she's putting it all together and pushing it out for the different platforms to be able to see the whole show. And we have Sherry, who's setting things up so that can be pushed out to the different places that AJ has helped with setting up. And we wouldn't be able to have a live show if we didn't have somebody letting people in, which is what is Rod's job today, as he is helping to make sure people are getting into the live Zoom. So thank you so much, Rod, for helping with that. And we have Marilyn, who is putting dictation into the chat and just reiterating what is being said in the program. So thank you so much, Marilyn. Folks, we all have our talents. Dr. Judy has amazing talent, and she has brought her skills from school, from teaching, from hands-on formulating within the animal kingdom and research as to what they need. And she has chosen longevity for nutrition for herself.
That might be a quick comment. Sorry, Becca. But when I was formulating animal diets, I kept saying, I wish we had something like this for people. I wish we had something for people. And this is where I found it. It's the best. It's the best that I have found. So, sorry.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So it's the best I found as well. And, it's people like you, Dr. Judy, bringing that knowledge, those talents. It's the talents like AJ offers, Ruth Ellen offers, Sherry, Rod, Marilyn, and so many others have talents, but they don't have any way that they can use those where they feel it's serving a better person or greater purpose than themselves. Folks, Dr. Wallach's crusade has room for so many people. And there are so many more people that are hurting who haven't heard this message. And if you have talents or a desire to help get this message out and allow people to be able to feel the difference, like Dr. Judy said, she wished that there was something for humans, and Longevity now has it. We have it for you as well. So get back with the person that shared this program with you. Thank them for sharing the program and ask them how you can get involved. Whether you want to start with yourself and then help your community, or whether you want to just jump all in, helping yourself and your community. Because as you're helping yourself and your family, and then your community, and I'm helping my community, everybody's helping their communities, that helps the world. And that's helping the world thrive, not just barely survive. And you get a thank you check on top of that. I can't think of a better way to put time in to something other than yourself in helping a community and building an income to help support yourself, your family. As the more that you're making, then the more that you're able to contribute to help others as well. If you're not working with somebody and you were not referred to somebody else or referred by somebody else to watch this program, we invite you to give our call team a call at 855-949-3377. Again, that's 855-949-3377. And for those of you who are interested more in business and health, we do have a business seminar that is going to be going on this Saturday from 1 to 6 p.m. Eastern time. So that is 10 to 3 Pacific time. You can get more information by going to or emailing info@nutrientshelp.com or going to ajhealthcoach.com. I'm pretty sure I got that right. ajhealthcoach.com. So folks, thank you again for joining us. Yes, that's right. The live seminar, if you would like to join us and you are in the Newark, New Jersey area, it is going to be at the Robert Treat Hotel, but we do need you to RSVP or submit your questions to info@nutrientshelp.com. We need to know which room we need to set up, because we have 2 different rooms that we can set up. So the more people we have, the bigger the room we go. If you'd like to join us live on Zoom, you're able to do that as well. Again, go to ajhealthcoach.com and you can register and RSVP for the online Zoom. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us on Daily with Doc. My name is Becca Dukes, and as the Director of Student Services for the Institute of Holistic Health, we invite you to also become a certified holistic health coach, whether it's for yourself or to build a business. It does not matter. Knowledge is power. Go to Coach with Becca or coach.dailywithdoc.com and get more information about our coaching program. And if you'd like to save money, make sure that you give us a call at 855-949-3377. We can help you get signed up for half the price. Until next time, bye for now. Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have the founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. Welcome to Daily with Doc and Becca. This program is for educational purposes only. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual sharing their testimony. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have the founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel